so one of the things Bitcoin theorists push forward is the notion that you can't add additional noise to this computational mechanism.
Right.
And that might be right. This is one of the things that really made me interested in Bitcoin. It's like, oh, okay, no interference with, if the free market is a computational device, and if it's the device that enables us to adapt to the horizon of the future, it better be, because it's the only bloody device we have, unless you think central planners are going to manage it. It's like, good luck with that. That's just not going to happen. And if that follows, it's this micro experimentation, at every front simultaneously, with micro failures occurring at the same time. You don't want noise that's not related to the actual environment introduced into that. Right. And hypothetically, that's what fiat inflation, for example, does. We could go one level deeper underneath this. It looks to me like we actually perceive the world through a structure of value. Mm-hmm. And the reason I believe that's the case is because you have to prioritize your perceptions, because you can't look at everything, right? So you only look at what's important. Well, what's important? And the answer is you don't know. And so how do we calculate that? And the answer is, at least in part, we calculate that with free choices of value in the marketplace. And you can think of this very straightforwardly, because you will look at, all things considered, you'll look at what other people are looking at, right? And so the market actually shows you what's of value. Right. And you should pay attention to it, because if a bunch of other people think it's valuable, that might well be valuable. And so you don't want anything to interfere with that structure of value that our perception itself is predicated on. And then you made a secondary point, which was, well, also, you don't want anything to interfere with your ability to store value for the future.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's a completely, is it a completely independent benefit? I don't know if it's independent, but it's certainly a big benefit. There probably isn't any difference between being able to store value for the future and being able to trade with other people without distortion, because the trade is a form of storage for the future.
Right.
And so it's just an extension of that, right?
Yes.
Because partly what you do to store value for the future is you distribute it into other people.
Yes.
And pull it back when you see fit. And if it's trustworthy, then you can rely on it. One of the things that's really awful about inflation, as far as I can tell, imagine yourself back in Germany at the end of World War I, and you're one of those ants, not the grasshopper, and you've saved and scrimped, and
right.
You've foregone gratification, you've built up your storehouse of value for your pension, maybe you've taken care of your family. You did that through sacrifice, right? Because other people are out there fiddling away and drinking beer, and not you, man. You're nose to the grindstone, and you put aside your store of value, and then poof, hyperinflation. It's like, weren't you stupid?
Yeah.
Because you could have been out there fiddling and drinking, and instead you were scrimping and saving, and now you got nothing.
Right.
And at least those other people have what's left of their memory. And the thing that's so catastrophic about that, possibly, is that that's actually a betrayal of precisely that which you least want to betray. Because you want to encourage people to have some faith in the future and make decisions that make the delay of gratification morally laudable and intelligent. And then, well, inflation it hurts those people the most. People with debt, it's like, yeah, man,
right.
Bring on the inflation.
Yeah.
It's the people who were careful.
Right.
And then if you think those are conscientious people, let's say, and there's an excellent literature looking at what makes people productive. Mm-hmm. And there are two cardinal dimensions of human variability that make people productive. One is general cognitive ability. That's often known as intelligence and formally measured as IQ. And part of the reason that makes people more productive is because they're faster, and more or less by definition, if one person does something and another person does it, the person who does it faster, if it's valuable, is doing it better. And general cognitive ability seems to be, in no small part, an index of something processing speed, right? And conscientiousness, and trait conscientiousness, and that's dutifulness. It's a conservative virtue, by which I mean people who are high in trait conscientiousness tend to have conservative political leanings, by the way. And those are the people you punish like mad with inflation, because they're the pillars of your society. If if your society, if you can define your society in some sense as a storehouse of deferred value,
Right.
which is a good way of describing, like, what the hell good is a civilization if it doesn't do that, right? I mean, it
Capital accumulation.
yeah, exactly. It has to allow you to accumulate what's necessary for security and thriving. So you want it to do that if you want a civilization. And then it's the conscientious people who strive to do that. And it's those you punish with inflation.
Right.
We've already wandered through the notion that there's a tight relationship between your ethics and your reputation, and a tight relationship between your reputation and the storage of value. And like that's really worth thinking through. And you have to decide for yourself, I think, whether or not you believe it's true. As an ethical actor, are you most protected against the vagaries of existence by being an ethical actor? I would say that actually, in some profound sense, defines what it means to be an ethical actor. Why would we consider something that didn't have that characteristic ethical? We'd just die if that was the case. That would be so counterproductive. I think what we regard as ethical in the highest sense is that which enables us to store value across the longest period of time. I mean, how could it be otherwise? And so that means that if you believe that, that will change your life, because you start taking what you do a lot more seriously if you believe that. And so is there a necessary interplay between the ethic, like the religious ethic, and the monetary system? What does it say on the dollar bill? Isn't it in God we trust? Yeah, well, so it's corrupted, and you Bitcoin purists might be right about your presuppositions. Well, we've wandered through a fair bit of conceptual territory today. I don't see any obvious manner in which the presuppositions of the Bitcoin community violate fundamental psychological principles. Quite the contrary. But, like I said, I'm not an economist, that's for sure, and there's lots of things I don't know, so I'd hesitate to give it my unwarranted stamp of approval, for whatever that's worth, and very little. I find it quite compelling, the idea of a incorruptible storehouse of value is the principle that most aptly governs, or even just competition at the street level. Without that time horizon, you grab and run fundamentally.
Right.
And so, like I said, this makes sense. That doesn't mean it's correct. but the fact that it is being played out in this experimental manner, in this competitive manner, I think the danger to the Bitcoin community, and this will probably happen sooner rather than later, is that you'll get clamped down on hard. And that strikes me as highly probable. I think the way that's likely to happen is that the governments will try to implement their own digital currencies, and then do everything they can to squash out competitors. And you think fiat currency is bad, you wait till it's fiat currency with a digital spin, man. Wait until people can track all of your purchases and decide using some scheme of fiat when you're acting unethically with regards to your choice of, let's say, consumer item. Do you really need that automobile? That'll be the next question, coming out down the pipes in the next 10 years. What makes you think you should have an automobile when the whole planet is at stake? It's like, who made you final arbiter of value? Your future, and maybe the future of your family on this. And so, it looks like you're really in the game. And if you're really in the game, well, then maybe that does facilitate a certain kind of ethical transformation. It's highly probable, just to start to think in that long-term way and to start to think about questions of ultimate value. It's like, how could that not have a transformative effect? It certainly does on people. And so, wouldn't it be lovely if this all worked out?